Let's have a look at the profitability strategy of cost controls. For a business to improve their profitability, they need to increase the difference between their revenue and their expenses. They can do this by reducing their expenses. The syllabus says we need to know 3 different aspects to this strategy. We need to know about fixed and variable costs, cost centers, and expense minimization. It all comes down to the business understanding, monitoring, and controlling their cost structure. The first step for a business to control their costs is to actually understand their cost structure. So what they need to know is how and where costs are generated, so that appropriate management techniques can be implemented to reduce or contain those costs. Let's first think about fixed costs. Fixed costs are those expenses that do not change with the level of business output. They're not dependent on production activities. Key examples include things like lease payments, salaries, and rent. The business has pretty limited scope to reduce these expenses, and the only time they really can do it is through thorough research and negotiation before entering into these contracts. Variable expenses, however, are those that do change with the level of business production, and they are the ones that are the focus of expense minimization strategies. Key examples of variable expenses include energy and the materials or inputs used to make the business's products. Variable costs can be minimized by controlling the activities that actually generate the expense, as well as improving the accountability and efficiency levels within the business. One way this can be done is through the use of cost centers. Cost centers are a department, division, or section within the business to which specific costs can be directly attributed to. Budgets can be prepared for each cost center, and they can be used to predict, but more importantly, monitor expenditure. And systems can be implemented to prevent cost overruns in each of these specific cost centers. They're really useful in helping to reduce expenses, as they not only allow the measurement and tracking of where costs are generated, but they also allow departments to be made responsible and accountable for spending, resulting in a reduction of any unnecessary or excessive spending, as the manager knows they're going to be called into question as to why they did that spending. The final aspect to cost control is all about expense minimization. So once we have a clear understanding of what the costs in the business are and how they're generated, we can reduce them through a range of techniques that result in the following: an elimination of waste, an improvement in efficiency, and a prevention of unnecessary spending. So some specific expense minimization strategies that a business may engage with include outsourcing. We might seek to reduce the use of the resource, think particularly in the case of something like energy. Equally, we want to build long-term relationships with our suppliers that could allow us to negotiate special deals, or we might buy in bulk from our suppliers. Alternatively, we might go and try and find a cheaper supplier or look for cheaper inputs that we could substitute into our production processes. We might improve our inventory management. We might use something like JIT that will allow us to reduce our warehousing costs, or we might implement some management techniques to prevent wastage, theft, or damage of any of our inventory so that we can realize its full value in future sales. We might improve our labor productivity and flexibility through training. Or finally, we might think to streamline our processes in our production, eliminate any components or processes that are not value-adding. So in summary, costs can be reduced in a business by understanding the cost structure of the business and where costs are generated. They can be reduced by developing cost centers and implementing techniques to monitor expenditure and ensure accountability for any cost overruns. And finally, we can minimize our expenditure through improved efficiency and productivity, reduced waste, and elimination of any unnecessary spending.